Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another gunpla video, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the monumental, world-bending, model kit revolutionizing, real-grade Gundam Oryx 78-2 2.0. A real grade getting a 2.0, this is crazy and a trend I hope to see continue. Anyway, this right here I got through those awesome people over at Hobby Link Japan, link is down there in the description. I'm going to be building this, going through all its absolutely mesmerizing intricacies because this is an incredible kit, like nothing I have ever built in my life. Anyway, let's get it built. So jumping into the build of the real grade Granddaddy 2.0, and first off I have to say, this is a normal size real grade box, but it's noticeably heavier than anyone I picked up before. So even though there's the same amount of runners really inside of it, feels like there's a little bit more on the runners and the plastic is a little bit more hefty. This is one quality kit. On jumping into the build, the first thing I decided to do is build this as the full inner frame first. That isn't really the way it's laid down in the manual. You'll be building the full kit if you follow the manual. I decided to build from the legs up and only build what makes and constitutes the inner frame, just because the pictures of it just look so stellar in the manual. Now immediately upon starting this, I was blown away. This is like nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing I've ever seen before. I've built pretty much the majority of Gundam model kits at this point, and this isn't like anything. It builds up in such a unique way. First up, you build a set of elements that's the same for both legs. A lot of parts attach in from the back in what seem like C-clips, but they're very layered. They're very secure and very strong. It all just feels so unique and ridiculous. Finally, you end up with a bunch of very detailed, intricate elements, and when it comes to building the left and the right leg, this is where everything starts to tie together. You've got an element which basically makes up the entire leg, then you've got an upper thigh area that clicks in, as well as the front of the knee with some parts of the lower leg attached onto it. These clip in, then we've got extra parts that attach in over them, and a little bit of a little cage rig kind of section on the sides in a lighter grey plastic. And this right here is what we get when we're done. I am so impressed by this. This is absolutely incredible. Even the little section right here up here, which is the usual part that attaches the leg into the hip joint, it's got little detail actually printed into it. The whole thing is so detailed. This is one of the most detailed inner frames I have ever seen, and it is on a 1/44th scale kit. When the knee bends, everything just pulls out from the inner knee just like so, and everything is absolutely uniquely fantastic. Oh yeah, and while I dropped it there, there's nice detail on the bottom of the foot too, and the red hasn't even been attached. Now I will mention at this point, if you do want to build a kit as just the inner frame first, the style that I'm building, you can actually find online this right here, which is the technical guide. This will walk you through actually building this kit as the inner frame first, and then afterwards tell you how to put the armor on. So if you do want to go through the whole process of building this with the inner frame first, this is the way that you can do it. And the QR code for doing that is right here in the manual. So I will pop that up on the screen right there if you want to check that out for yourself. But yeah, when it does come to the waist unit in here, it just shows how Bandai has become, I don't know what kind of black magic they've tapped into for building model kits, but this is at the same time quite simple when it comes to the amount of parts and intricately detailed. Everything layers up just as fantastically as before, and there are so many moving parts, yet at the same time, somewhat simple. So this right here is the finished waist unit. On the back right here, we do have this opening little hatch for attaching stuff on. We've got a 3mm hard point right there. And besides that, we do have a little section here you can pull forward to allow the hips to drop down for more articulation. I do feel more moving parts inside of that as well, but it seems like they might be easier to access once the frame is put together. Forging on through the build, and next up in here is the torso, which is a little bit of a 2-point build. First you build the upper side of the torso, and then you build the core block and the core fighter for inside of it. Now this, once again, just builds up in such an incredibly intricate way, with these kind of semi-C-clip joints holding everything together. Everything layers up part by part by part, and then eventually you fold in a grey inner frame section underneath a larger, darker grey inner frame section to make what I assume is going to be the ab crunch joint. That is insane. We've got some other parts then for putting together for the opening cockpit, which this kit does have, and that means it's time to build the core fighter. So in order to build the full inner frame, you do need to build the full core fighter inside of it. So you finally get to build some colored plastic. There's so much in here. We've got the canopy building onto the cockpit section of this. It all layers up onto it. Lots of nice colors, tiny little pieces. Multiple layers to the venting. So many individual tiny little joints. And then you finally start to see that core fighter coming together. Everything is really nice. We've got the tail fin section. The wings attach in very simply, sandwich on with a rear section. We've got thrusters round back. And finally, we do have some landing gears to attach into it too. So yeah, right here, this is what we've got of the torso. So these arms are very nice. We do have some blue sections up there. They go all the way through. We've got some nice moving elements. This is also fluid and perfect. This must be where the core block attaches on, but I'm not going to do that just yet. And we do have a little section here for when the cockpit is finally attached on. Or should I say the cockpit armor. And speaking of the actual cockpit, it is inside of this right here, which is the core fighter, which transforms into the core block. But before actually transforming this right here into the core block, let's take a look at it as a unit itself. So taking a bit of a look at the core fighter, and again, this is ridiculously detailed considering this is fully transformable at 1/44th scale. It looks great. We've got all sorts of details all over it, full color separation, a lot of aspects which would love some nice panel lining, and we do have a clear cockpit as well. The option to have the landing gear either out or in, it just involves taking them on or off. Zooming on in a little bit closer right there, you can see we do have a full cockpit with that nice clear canopy. That just looks so cool. That does have a little bit of a joint in it, so it does mean we can open and close that just like so. Now we've seen core fighters time and time again, but not quite this tiny, I don't think, especially not with that full nice transformation. Now before I do transform it, I will mention we do have those landing gears down here. I do find these are quite the loss risk. They do come off incredibly easily, so I guess you should really decide on what you're going to be doing with this. If you want to display it, it might be worth thinking about putting those in permanently. But that's what it looks like when it is in flight. So friggin' tiny. And getting it transformed into the core block is super simple. You push in the nose section like so, flip that around then completely underneath it, fold in that little tail fin, and then you just bring up the wings just like so. Nice, compact, and simple. Now for me, I've never really been a fan of the core block system. I've always thought Mark II supremacy, which completely removes this from the design. But the reason I don't like it is because they tend to undermine the kit that they're put into and tend to be a little bit too finicky. This, surprisingly, even though it's tiny, is not that finicky. Next up then is the shoulder armor, and that is this right here. It's very simple. It's just the part for attaching it onto the main body, the front and rear armor segments, and then a part on top that just latches it all in. So this is it without the armor. Not really a whole lot to say. Next up, when it does come to the arms in here, once again, we've got some ridiculously unique joints I've never seen the likes of before. The way the shoulder joint slots into the upper arm, both aspects of the elbow, they're just singular parts, really. It just slides up inside again, somewhat like a C-clip, but at the same time quite different. And once you actually straighten these out, that's when it locks into place. Inside, the wrist aspect is an even cooler kind of thing that, again, is a joint I have never seen before. You slot one part inside of another, and then there's a ball joint attachment that locks everything into place, which I assume is going to give us a nice little bit of extra wrist movement. Another section attaches down into this, and that attaches onto the elbow in the exact same way we would have seen over and over again with the joints on this kit, and then you throw on the hand. And this right here is what you get once you are finished. So this is, again, the same kind of joint we saw at the knee, which is so impressive. I have never seen a joint like this before. This has just been designed in a way that's just so simple, but at the same time, so technically crazy. Also, we've got this nice little bit of movement at that sidewards ball joint. As you'd expect with this kit, just like the rest of it, the head is impressive. We've got some head camera sections in a nice clear red that slots into the back of the head. The neck then attaches into the back of the head too, which means we're probably going to get a lot of nice upwards movement. Now at this point we do have some stickers in here and you do have some choices. For the head cameras you can leave them either the clear red plastic we had already, some flat red ones reflective like you normally see, or some ones that kind of have a little bit of detail etched into them to make them look a little bit like cameras with some depth and that there's cameras inside of them. I went with the more detailed ones just to see how they do work out, but you do have the three choices. Continuing on, we do have color separated eyes in here. They just slot through from the back into the front face mask section like so, which attaches on. So we do have yellow color separated eyes. So again, we do have three choices when it comes to the eyes. That's leave the plastic just as it is. We've got standard eye stickers, which are just reflective yellow, or once again, we've got ones with detail etched into them. Now, these look absolutely ridiculous. They're giving me Egg of the Perfect World from Berserk vibes with the kind of weird circles in them that look like weird piercing pupils. They were a bit on the weird side. So of course, those are the ones I went for. Finally then, you've got the red Gundam beard and under eye section, followed by the typical Gundam muzzle. And here we go. Here is the complete head without the armor. So we do have clear parts for the head cameras, but I did not use them. I've got those freaky deaky eyes in there, which look very unique. The muzzle does not actually have holes into that little vent section like we would have seen in older real grades, which is pretty good because that used to break a lot. So you will have to pan line this to get some detail out of it. We do have some gray Vulcans up here as well, which is always nice and overall looking good. And the final part of the build then is the backpack. Again, just as detailed as everything else. We've got a moving section in the middle with a nice hard point on it. The aspects the beam sabers attach into have multiple points of articulation. The verniers are made up of two little sections apiece, making them nice and detailed. And finally, it all just knits together with a nice armored section, which allows some of the detail from underneath to layer through it. Again, gorgeous. And then this right here is what we've got when we're done. We've got these moving little verniers right here. These parts move ever so nicely, so we've got some simple rotation there and there as well, allowing them to come up at two different angles. So there, to there, to there, like so. Nice folding to that. So finally, there it is, the real grade RX-78-2 2.0 inner frame put together in all of its glory. Now this, if I actually had the standard 1.0 version, you'd see it's absolute night and day. I've got some old footage for what it looked like, and it was just a scarecrow in comparison to this fully realized frame. Honestly, even if you take something like the Master Grade RX-78-2 3.0, that doesn't have an inner frame this nice. This almost rivals the perfect grade Unleashed. Of course, that's got multiple layers to its inner frame, so it can't be as detailed, but considering just how small this right here is, the amount of detail on this frame is off the charts. There's none of that stupid old school early real grade kind of frame here at all. This is all built up piece after piece after piece. We've got multiple shades of grey, dark grey, middle grey, and light grey, which is bordering on white. And we do have some of the nice colors in the head and in the torso of some of the colors that will be coming through in the end. This is incredible. This is one of the greatest technological marvels I have ever seen when it comes to robot model kits. So busting out that online manual once again in order to put this together, now it's time to work on the armor. At this point it might get a little bit confusing using the actual manual right here because this expects you to only be at certain places in the build at a time. This one actually expects you to have the inner frame just built and standing there just like that. And you can build on all the armor without actually disassembling the Gundam. Looks like you might have to pop the head off at one point. Probably the arms as well. It's a little tough to tell, but at least it'll be easier to follow. By the way, I recommend using this on like a laptop, not a phone. That's a little bit small. Now it is time to get those legs armored up, and this is just as impressive as what we saw with the inner frame. So you just snip these out as usual. There's a lot of undergating here, which means there is a little bit, well, more involved in taking off the actual knobs, because you have to snip them from underneath and maybe kind of get them off with a blade a little bit. This kind of implies that Bandai is going to be releasing other versions of this, probably with a bit of a fancy titanium coat or a different kind of painted finish. But yeah, all the bits layer up absolutely perfectly. This is a little bit more normal compared to what we would have seen with the intricacies of the inner frame, but there is some nice aspects. For example, when you attach on the ankle armor and then the bits onto the sides of those, you actually have to turn them to lock them once they are attached on, which is incredibly intricate. The rest of the armor up on the upper thigh, the lower leg, all layers up in the way you'd expect it to, and in the end it does look absolutely phenomenal. And here we are rocking one finished leg, and this just looks so good. And the coolest aspect, of course, is when you do bend this leg, the way the armor all separates is so incredibly cool. Just look at that knee armor, the upper thigh split, it's all absolutely perfect. That is gorgeous. I would pop this on to have one armored leg, but I need the waist unit, so I'll be digging that out to get that finished. So it actually turns out you're able to attach on all of the armor of the waist unit without actually, well, not having the leg on. So I threw the leg back on and started to add on the armor. Everything layers up in the usual kind of way. We do have a nice color separated yellow crotch V, which always makes me happy. It's easy to add on the skirting armor. It's super perfectly designed. You just add the white sections onto the grey sections, no issues, and the yellow sections over. There's nothing loose, nothing weird, nothing at all. Side skirts pop on. We've got the cockpit hatch and the exterior section for around it, which attaches into a moving articulated segment, and then we're done. And this is what we've got so far. One leg armored, the diaper armored up, and we also go up as far as this section right here. Next up is the torso, then I'll do an arm, then the head, and then I guess I'll do the other arm and leg. So far, so fun. When it comes to the torso, there's one thing you cannot deny. When Bandai makes an event kit, they prioritize the enjoyment of the build. It is so good. First up, you tilt forward the torso, then you attach the red sections of the waist in underneath the inner frame, so they even underlap the inner frame. You flip that back, then attach on the door and the armor of the cockpit, attach on the yellow section for the collar around the neck. Then you can actually attach on the blue armored sections of the chest with the arms still attached. Just move them up out of the way and they clip in from the side. The build is phenomenal. Finishing it off then with those yellow vents slotting seamlessly into the chest. And this is now where we stand with the kit. I am so impressed by this. The build is phenomenal. The way it puts together just feels so good. The chest is on there now looking blocky and old school, and the whole thing just feels so fun to do. By the way, this is not difficult at all. Everything is simple, even though some of the parts are small. They're not too small, and the whole thing has been designed so perfectly. It's just so streamlined and awesome to do. Moving on to the arm now, and this is definitely the part of this kit that does have the most small, intricate parts, but still nothing too difficult. Everything just builds up in the usual kind of sandwich way that's been happening so far. Just a layer after layer after layer, two shades of white that's a light grey and a nice pristine white, and everything just works out nicely. Down the wrist, you do have to move the wrist around ever so slightly to get everything where they need to go, but super simple, not much to it. And by not much to it, I mean not much to actually the difficulty or anything like that, because there is a whole lot to this absolutely over-the-top detailed arm right here. And I thought I'd film this momentous occasion right here because it's always so nice, especially in a complex kit like this, to empty your first runner or your first sprue. So this is my first one right here. See, actually getting emptied out and can be moved out of the way completely. Always a nice moment in a build. Just when you think a kit can't really bring anything new to the table, the build of the head of this is incredible too. The whole V-fin section builds up as 3 pieces onto a segment, which, well, once again, they all knit together perfectly, so there will be no falling off V-fin here ever. You then slot that into the top of the head, the side armors attach on like bread onto a sandwich, the inner part of the bread being the ham, and then you just slap that Gundam mohawk down onto the top just like so, and you are done. And there we go, a bit of a cool half-built Gundam. Some half of the inner frame out just like that. This part armored up, so you can see a nice comparison between what it looks like with the inner frame exposed and how thick and heavy it looks with the armor attached on. This is one incredible looking kit. And there we go, the real grade Oryx 78-2 2.0 in all of its glory. This thing is so small, so intricate, so perfect in absolutely every way. I also noticed that while building this, and this is a bit of an aside, it has the high grade backpack adapter. That is something you do not see in real grade kits, so that means this has some great compatibility too. Anyway, that is it for today. So I've got it kind of left in a bit of a half build, which is something I always love to see. This, especially something with so much inner detail. This almost looks like it'd be standing in a maintenance bay, getting repaired, getting tuned up. Honestly, just leaving it like this just lets you see just how much detail is hidden when it is all built up. But of course, I will throw the rest of the armor on for the full review. As usual, if you do have any questions you'd like to see, or something you'd like to see mentioned in the actual full review, drop it down there in the comments, and I'll try to get to it in that review as soon as possible. But hey, this thing is gorgeous. Anyway, I did get mine right here through HobbyLink Japan. Link is in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more gunpla content, builds, and reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, I can't finish this video without special thanks to those who support the channel on the memberships as well as over on Patreon, including Abraxas, Caleb Engelhardt, Joe, Orgy59061, ShadowWolf179, 10 Soldier YT, and Van Fawn.